Released exclusively to the Japanese game market on December 11th, 1992 by the defunct Riot and their parent company Telenet Japan, Psycho Dream is an interesting piece of work. Not some ill-begotten masterpiece that's been left to be forgotten as flotsam at the wayside, nor some slop at the feeding trough that's totally mechanically broken. It's quintessential Kusoge. And while that Japanese term might directly translate to shit game in plain spoken English, I do believe its use as common vernacular on the internet has estranged it from its original meaning and transformed it into a sort of term of endearment. One that almost exclusively applies to games of marginally lesser quality that do still have a bit of charm to them. Although I'm going to be a bit mean to this game as the video carries on, I really do think it's worth playing for yourself. You can easily clear the whole game in about an hour, and discounting the very final section of the game, it's really not all that difficult. Psycho Dream offers two playable characters to choose from in Ryo and Maria, each having fairly similar capabilities, but with Maria specifically acting as a sort of alternative easy mode made into a selectable character, given her homing bullets and ability to hover after a jump. Ryo starts with a basic sword that can be upgraded into an arm blade that eventually leads to a further leg blade upgrade that ultimately allows him to hit enemies both high and low. His respective gun upgrade also allows him to similarly hit enemies above and below him simultaneously. Something not made readily apparent is how you do have a choice in which style of attack is used, as the yellow crystal pickups that directly improve your melee attack change to a blue one that shifts your attack over to the projectile variant after being left alone for a few seconds before grabbing it. Strangely, this is a consistent mechanic in every level excluding the very last scene of the final level containing the final boss. This is just one of the several aspects that drives me to touting Psycho Dream as a Kusoge of sorts. It's not too clunky, but it's got some quirks that lead it to being an obtuse experience overall. Maria starts with a whip for her melee weapon of choice, and while her max power upgrade and final step of her projectile weapon affords her the aforementioned homing bullets, playing her only makes the game a bit easier than it already is. Even though I'm a little bit partial towards Maria's design in totality, especially her final form with the very obviously butterfly-inspired look, I think both characters have really solid sprite work and just generally look great, along with most of the game, but I'll get to that a little bit later. As I alluded to before, the game is really, really short, or at least pretty short in comparison to other Super Nintendo, Super Famicom platformers, action platformers, if you will. With only 6 levels overall, with 3 scenes apiece, as they're called in-game, it really is not all that excruciating of an experience to get through or that much of a time sink at all. In fact, I think the whole appeal, or one of the most major appeals, is the boss fights at the end of each stage. Similarly to how I was talking about the character sprites, the bosses look fantastic and are of a huge draw in that regard, at least stylistically. Probably, I think that's fair enough to say. You could say the same thing for most of the enemies, but a lot of them are just, I don't even know what the hell I'm looking at half the time. It doesn't look like anything even somewhat parsable as a design. I think some of them are supposed to be like bacteria or like maybe just like insects. So, well, I mean, clearly there's like there's a whole giant cricket boss fight. That's kind of obvious, but you know what I mean. It's they have a great sense of style, but I'm not really sure what they're going for with some of them. While each of the 6 levels definitely have their respective jank, I think most of the actual difficulty is saved for the final 2, and not in really a good way, mind you. Stage 5 is an auto-running level, and it just is, it's not terrible, but it goes on for way too long. I mean, I almost understand why they had to do it, just to pad out the game, considering how short it already is, but it's not that enjoyable. It's fine for what it is, but it's not great. And the final level, and especially the final boss of the game, is excruciatingly annoying, to the point that it is actually infuriating. It is very upsetting to fight against, just because there is legitimately no pattern. At least not really. There is a sort of cheese to it once it enters its second form, where you can actually whittle away at the health bar of the thing. But for the most part, it's just you're getting shot at, you can't do anything, and it sucks, and it's not enjoyable. Not terrible. It's, designed with some intent, a great design like every other fight before it, but it's not that good. It's in fact, it's pretty bad. While the music of Psycho Dream is certainly high energy, I would not say it's very good. I know a lot of people would probably disagree with that statement, taste being a subjective thing and whatnot, and although I can agree that there's a certain charm to its catchy nature, it's just kind of noise to me after a point. And I don't think that's an unwarranted critique when accounting for composer Michiko Naruke's considerably higher quality work in series like Wild Arms and Super Smash Bros. That's not even comparing said music to the pre-existing glut of supremely good music in other Super Famicom games. I think the best thing about Psycho Dream is the most apparent aspect of it, and what I was kind of talking about before, its style. The graphics and general design are very solid. In fact, I'd say the general look of this game is so good that it'd be better applied to an animated or live-action project. Maybe something that looks a bit more like, the game's commercial?
彼女は自分の弱い肉体を儚み、自らドラッグムービーの世界にブレインアウトしてしまった。そして3日後、さやかの精神を現実へ戻すべく、2人のデバッカー。
While Psycho Dream does have a story to accommodate the general psychedelia-infused presentation, it's entirely relegated to its manual and further promotional material outside of the game itself. Credit where credit is due, the general premise is interesting. Both Rio and Maria are a type of hacker superhero thing known as debuggers. The rise of prominence of drug movies, or D-movies, as it's known in... I think it's just the one English translation, but in the English translation I played at least, these drug movies have necessitated their insertion into the dreams of a girl known as Sayaka, who has been lost in a dream world of her own design under the influence of these drug movies. The levels and bosses you come to meet throughout Psycho Dream are Sayaka's illusions made manifest that must be bested in order to save her life. This genuinely intriguing world building, in combination with the aesthetic I've been describing, makes me wish this was a tokusatsu show, movie, or an anime of some sort instead of the video game we ultimately received. A textual blurb included in the intro alludes to the game's actual story, and the in need of saving Sayaka is a core part of a few boss encounters, but again, no plot is explicitly relayed to you in any way in the game proper. That's not really a bad thing, mind you, but it's indicative of certain qualities that Psycho Dream is ultimately lacking. And you can tell they probably wanted to do more in this regard too, as the same development team had already proven their capabilities at intertwining a finer narrative within a proper game with the Valis series, which I've been led to believe is a loose sort of basis for this particular title. All of that being said, and considering my prior remarks concerning the Kusoge qualities of Psycho Dream, I'd like to repeat what I said at the very beginning. Try playing this game for yourself. Not only is it really, really short, but it's not an outright bad experience to really any degree, except maybe that final boss. This really is the core reason behind my continued use of the term Kusoge. Many modern video games have certain miserable qualities about them that prevent a pretty large portion of players from enjoying them at all. And I think the distinction between straight up poorly designed games and simply partially faulty ones is important to make. Vintage and modern games alike are often admonished for not being exactly what players want. And I think that closed-mindedness estranges people from experiencing games for themselves.